I'm Fergus Couch. I'm from the Mayo Clinic, and I'm a professor of experimental pathology. We have a very large pathology department, and we are the basic research, translational research component of that clinical department. So that's why we call it experimental pathology. I'm from Ireland originally, grew up in Southern Ireland, and came over here as part of my PhD, and ended up at the University of Pennsylvania with Barbara Weber as a postdoc many years ago, when we were trying to identify the BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes. And I've just stayed in the business ever since. I've spent 25 years at Mayo Clinic. So I've been in this business from the very beginning, from when we originally identified these genes, and just stayed with it ever since. And so my focus has been on prevention and understanding the genetics, the inherited genetics of breast cancer. And that's BRCA1 and 2, and now we have many other genes involved as well. So a lot of what I've done is really focused on what are the different types of mutations that occur in patients, what's the risk associated with these different mutations, what types of cancer do they get. Sometimes we have strange genetic changes that we don't fully understand, variants of uncertain significance that can pop up in genetic testing. My lab has really specialized in understanding those variants, using functional studies in the laboratory, but also clinical data from patients, and kind of merging the two together. So most people think of me as a translational researcher, right? I take some basic science, some clinical data, and sort of put it together and try to learn things for patients. I think one of the most interesting parts of my work over the years has been that it's what we call bench to bedside. When we make observations, these observations tend to move into the clinic very quickly. They're not the type of things that need FDA approval or anything like that. They just move very quickly into the clinic and help patients understand the risk of their disease. I think most people probably have relatives with breast or ovarian cancer, and I have the same, so it's meaningful in that way. And also just these patients are so invested. They have such high risks of various different cancers. And so my feeling is, can we use our science to really help these people? And that's just always been my driving force. Really a tremendous honor. There's some of the great people in this field have won this thing in the past, and for me to now be amongst that group is really terrific. I think it's a testament to a lifetime of work in this field. As I said earlier, I've really spent 25, 30 years working in the genetics of breast cancer and made a number of different contributions, and to see that now recognized many years later is really nice. There's not one. There's more than one. We saw it just this morning in the Basler Center Symposium, trying to understand what's causing these cancers. You know, we can look at these original normal cells in the patients who have mutations, and what are the events that are really triggering those normal cells to become cancer cells. That's a major drive right now, and there's a number of investigators working in that space. And then the other side of it is therapy. Can we treat these tumors? And there's been tremendous advances in that area with PARP inhibitors and other agents like that. But now we have resistance to the PARP inhibitors, and really trying to understand the mechanisms of resistance to these drugs, because the average patient will do well for a small amount of time on these drugs, but then they will develop resistance and progress. And so we have to have the next bank of agents ready to help them with their resistance. And so understanding that resistance, I think, is a really key point. They already are. They're doing tremendous work, funding a lot of investigators with really novel, creative ideas, both internally at the University of Pennsylvania, but also their external funding program, where they're picking the best and the brightest, the people with the novel ideas, and really trying to develop that. And they're supporting basic research all the way to vaccine development and various other mechanisms like that. So I think they're doing a tremendous job, and I hope they continue. It's tough to deal with it. It's really scary to have this kind of risk hanging over your head. But just know that there's a huge amount of work going on in this space across all aspects, all the way from risk to therapy. And you know, people are working hard, and advances are being made. And you know, hang in there, and let's see what we can do for you over the next few years.